In the world of fashion, what's old is new again. And that being said, trends from the 2000s are back in style, with the Y2K aesthetic making a huge splash here on the local front and elsewhere across the globe. So what is the Y2K fashion? Why has it been trending in recent times? And how is the old money look making its presence known? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today, we talk about the trends of the 2000s that are making a comeback. For more on this, I have fashion stylist James Dykes here in the studio with me. James, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Sunny. Nice to be here.
Right. James, let's begin first then with a definition of Y2K fashion with some vivid examples, of course.
Of course. So Y2K fashion refers to fashion that is nostalgic from the time period of the 2000s. So we're thinking Britney Spears with her low-rise jeans, baby-fit T-shirts. Christina Aguilera was kind of very provocative for this time, but she also kind of underwear as outerwear, and also Von Dutch caps was a major thing as well. And Paris Hilton is kind of like the perfect example. She was the it girl of the Y2K fashion. So everything that was over the top, juicy couture tracksuits, Von Dutch caps, and everything that was either loud or bling. So it's a good interpretation of the Y2K movement. We have stars like Justin Timberlake, who was wearing lots of double denim. Ashton Kutcher wearing lots of trucker hats. He was kind of iconically famous for that style. And soccer star David Beckham is kind of a random one. Not everyone knew, but he was kind of at the forefront of Y2K fashion because of Victoria Beckham, his wife, making it kind of pushing him into the spotlight a little bit more. And with him, it was more about like cargo pants and tank tops and caps. So we see that style very much still relevant now in very much like idols like NCT or 17. They're kind of taking on these styles and interpreting them for themselves.
Right, indeed. and that being said, James, why do you suppose is Y2K fashion making a comeback in recent times?
Well, Y2K fashion, I'm not sure if everyone is aware, so fashion tends to be a 20-year cycle. So what tends to happen is a trend kind of is dormant, and then in a 20-year period it starts to get momentum. So Y2K was perfectly on track to be a trend that is relevant now. And so it's kind of like, it's become faster because of TikTok, and the generation that is interested in Y2K is seeing all these styles on TikTok, and it's becoming relevant for them. So they're like, oh, this is cool, and they're starting to kind of delve into it. And also you have these big K-pop stars that are styled in this Y2K style. So it's something that they can relate to. So you have someone like Lisa from Blackpink is a perfect example, and Taeyoung from Big Bang is someone that is definitely taking these Y2K styles and making them more relevant for a Korean audience, I think, as well.
Right. James, is the return of Y2K fashion as perhaps eagerly embraced elsewhere as it is here in the country?
I think that it is, it's a very broad trend. I think it's definitely a global trend. And because of TikTok, again, I'm going to talk about TikTok so much, because it's so relevant, it's kind of globally, TikTok is pushing trends everywhere. It's not like Y2K is not happening in the US, it's happening in the US, it's happening in Australia, it's definitely happening globally, but it's definitely something that is being pushed by TikTok. We're starting to see it more and more, because of social media.
Right, I see. And along with Y2K fashion, James, I understand that retro, I'm not even sure if I can use the word retro, but retro items like keyrings and, of course, camcorders, they are making a splash as well. Now, that all being said then, do you suppose that accessories are perhaps the final touches to an outfit to make it go from dull to divine, if I may?
Yes, of course. I think that we're starting to see camcorders and things used in a way that's kind of like as a prop. So you definitely see camcorders on people's Instagram and kind of using like filters on their Instagram photos that is like, you know when you were had a digital camera, it had a little timestamp in the corner.
Right, I removed that.
It's very much of a certain period, right? So it's like you start to seeing those, and it's used as a prop and in social media, but we're also starting to see like the chains that skaters used to wear in the Y2K movement, like with the key rings and that kind of aesthetic come through. But I definitely think that an accessory is a final touch. So you have those chains and the key rings and a bucket hat. And I think it's something that you can easily embrace if you're not to want to do a full look from Y2K. And it's just something you can add, so it's a little less scary, I think, than embracing a full Y2K look.
Right, I suppose it's a little bit less intimidating.
Yeah, I think so. It's a bit easier approach.
Right, it really is.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, before we go forward, James, what's the connection? What is the connection between butterflies and Y2K fashion?
But it's a very big one. I think the most iconic person from the Y2K that introduced butterfly fashion to the movement is definitely Mariah Carey. There's very much a very iconic image of her. She's at an award show. She's got a very revealing kind of, it's basically a butterfly top which is covered in crystals, and it was a very a poignant moment in her career that she wore this top, and then from there it kind of took off, and it was on jeans and it was on t-shirts and it was crystallized. And in the Y2K movement, we had so many things that were bejeweled. It was kind of bringing it back to Paris Hilton, you know, seeing her with a flip phone with covered in crystal. So it was like that butterfly movement kind of pushed its way into this, across all different categories, basically.
Right, because we have a number of K-pop stars with butterfly tops.
Yeah, you'll see it definitely. The girls from New Jeans, you've seen it. We've seen it pop up on them. Not as obviously as revealing because obviously their age, but it's more they'll wear a T-shirt under it with the top over the top. And artists like American artists like Dua Lipa, as she's kind of championing the trend. She actually just did a collaboration with Versace, and it was all butterfly inspired. And the top again. And the print kind of is done again for a new customer, basically.
Right, I see. James, another aesthetic that is trending is the so-called old money look. What exactly is this look?
So the old money look is being talked a lot about on social media and TikTok. It's basically creating a look that exudes wealth and class without being flashy or ostentatious. It is kind of stripping all the logos that we've had from these previous seasons and logo mania, where people were wearing so many brands and very much like you knew the brand that they were wearing. So it's kind of paring everything back and to more kind of tailored pieces, a very masculine look. And this is kind of keeping it very simple is the key, basically. We want to strip away everything, no branding, no logos, very minimal. And it's basically the talk of the moment on social media, and with also these LA socialites. So we have, I'm not sure if you're aware of Sophia Richie-Grange. She's kind of having a moment on social media at the moment. She's Lionel Richie's daughter, and she's like a champion for this aesthetic. It's very much that people are looking to her for this old money aesthetic.
Right, I see. For some reason, when you talk about old money aesthetic, the only thing that comes to my mind is that book by Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, that's very much, it's very in tune with that aesthetic. It's kind of, they're taking the older references, like old Hollywood references, and taking it to this modern aesthetic, but it's just being about minimal and kind of not so flashy with your kind of aesthetic.
Right, and that in mind, James, if you had to pick one clothing item to define the old look for a man, what would it be? And also, do give me one for a woman.
Of course, of course. I think for a man, it's very much about soft tailoring and something in linen fabrics or something that's a little bit light. We're thinking like holiday looks. So a perfect example would be today. So it's like, it's very warm. But if you were wearing a classic white t-shirt with a really beautiful linen jacket, they call it a soft shoulder, which means it has no padding or anything in the shoulder, so it has this looseness. So definitely something like this would be perfect for the old money aesthetic. And then in terms of women's wear, you probably want to think about something, a suit is probably the best place to start as a two-piece. And we want to keep it very relaxed. So we don't want anything too fitted in the shoulder. We want to have this looseness all over. And if not the jacket, we're thinking probably a vest. So it's kind of a simple vest. If you were comfortable, nothing underneath, just with a vest and with a pant. But if not, with a jacket.
What colours are we looking at? We're
thinking like really bone, light, very tonal colours, nothing too bright. So like white, bone, biscuity kind of taupey colours. Creams, yeah. Nice. It's kind of, in Korea, it's almost been taken in kind of more of a French aesthetic. You see girls kind of taking on social media it looks like it could be a combination of the old money aesthetic, but they're taking it a little bit more French twist in the way that they're styling it. Yeah.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, James, moving forward, I understand soccer uniforms have also
Yes.
become source of inspiration in recent times. What do you suppose is behind this particular trend?
Well, sportswear has always been kind of popular. It's back to the early 90s. You had kind of sportswear brands that were taken by hip hop culture. So you had brands like Tommy Hilfiger and FUBU in that very poignant time, you know what I mean? So there's definitely like the American kind of hip hop artists having it at that time. And so the younger generation has definitely taken it into today's aesthetics. And because there is another trend on TikTok, again, TikTok, but it's called the Adam Sandler trend. And if you're familiar, it seems a bit crazy that he would be a fashion reference because his aesthetic is not very desired, I would say. But if you think about what he wears, it's this really oversized football t-shirt, soccer kind of shorts, and what they call is a dad shoe. But all of these things in Korea are technically trending. You definitely see younger girls taking this basically Adam Sandler and hip hop kind of sportswear reference and translating it in a way that's a bit more hip and a bit more, it works for them in this tomboy style. So it's very much like nothing too big, nothing too fitted. They'll wear the oversized like sports guernsey with a, you know, a safety short or a pair of shorts underneath, and then a pair of what they call dad sneakers, which is funny because they're brands that were technically not trending, but in Korea we've kind of made them cool, and now they're kind of, the trend has become what it is. It's kind of crazy.
Dominant, I suppose. James, department stores here in the country have expanded their accommodation of luxury brands for male customers, that is, amid a surge in spending by young Korean men.
Yes.
Is this a universal trend, or is it one that is solely visible here in Korea?
I definitely think that it's on the rise globally. I definitely think the menswear market is something that is growing. Men are definitely feeling more comfortable approaching fashion and being socially acceptable. But I do think in Korea it's a bit more accelerated. So we definitely, I don't think you're necessarily in the West, you would see like a group of guys comfortably shopping together. Whereas in Korea, that's very common. So you'll definitely see like guys in their early 20s shopping together comfortably and giving each other tips on fashion. And it was interesting, I had international guests visiting Korea, and they were wondering when we were on the train or when we're out and about in Korea, they're like, the guys are all shopping together, what are they talking about? But what they're talking about is fashion and how much they love it and enjoy it. So it's definitely the social stigma is less here, I think, and that's why there is definitely more of a spending power here. And I definitely think that with social media, you get younger generations sharing their pictures and their outfits and people commenting, and it's definitely, there's 100% less of a stigma. So that's the main one, and I guess also, I was thinking about it today, it's definitely also if you are going for a job in Korea, you do have to sometimes present a profile picture. So if you present a little bit better, it may be something that is beneficial to you as well. So I think that there's a few things involved in it, but I definitely think the stigma is the one thing that there's less to be worried about. People are comfortable to enjoy fashion, I think, a younger generation.
Right, and staying with that, James, in the early days of the pandemic, this would be in early 2020, CNN did an extensive piece on how Korean men were leading the world male beauty market. They had a question in that article that they left open, and I'd like to extend that question to you. Do you see the West following suit with regard to Korea's men's interest in fashion as well as grooming themselves as well?
I read the article actually, it was sent to me. I thought it was very fascinating. It's definitely, again, it comes back to the stigma around beauty. I think in Korea, when you come here as a foreigner, you definitely start seeing more, it's socially acceptable. You will see someone touching their makeup, a male, touching up their makeup or putting on a lip tint with no stigma against the fact that they would do so. But I definitely think in the West, it's got a little bit, there's momentum there. You have brands like Fenty and Milk Makeup. They're starting to put more like Western male in their campaign. But definitely here, it's definitely, the stigma is more open. And I definitely think that you have these global kind of pop stars that are the face of a makeup. So you have somebody like, I know Kai and Bam Bam from GOT7, they're ambassadors for YSL. So they're there showing a cushion, they're enjoying it. So it's definitely something that is definitely more sociably acceptable. And I think in the West, you don't really see like a foreign actor, the face of a makeup. You would see him the face of like maybe a fragrance or something that's, yeah, less open in the way that they would approach it, I think, with beauty. But there's progress.
Right.
I definitely
Baby
think
steps then.
Baby steps, I think so, yeah.
James, a number of luxury brands like Louis Vuitton and Gucci, they've held very large outdoor fashion events here in the capital city. How do you explain the perhaps growing interest in the Korean market among exclusive luxury brands?
I definitely think it's got a lot with the buying power of the Korean customer. So in Korea, technically in Korea, the consumer buys higher average than the US and China. So we're definitely seeing a huge spending power here. So all of these luxury brands are now starting to think, oh, what is happening in Korea? This is something that we should be looking into. It used to be that Japan was the kind of leader in the trend, and people from the West would be like, the trends are coming from Japan. But because we have, you know, K-pop and K-culture has brought this huge awareness, and you know, people are interested in Korean culture now. But it's not just Korean culture. We have so many Korean celebrities now. We have Peggy Goo in music, and we have, you know, on Netflix, it's quite common for things to be the #1 trending, you know, program. So something, I know Bloodhounds just was a recent program, and now that's #1. And something like, obviously, Squid Games, the huge success of this, the stars from that show are now ambassadors for luxury brands. So there's definitely more eyes. Like, I know that the actors are ambassadors for Gucci. And so there's definitely people are starting to wonder what's happening in Korea. So it's definitely, there's more eyes on us, I think, than ever before.
Right,
in
and
the
this
culture.
is an impromptu question, but before the start of our session, you were talking about how some of your clients overseas were interested in getting items from luxury brands here in Korea because they weren't available overseas.
Yeah, so there definitely is a trend here, and because of this soft power, they call it, with Korea, there's definitely more stock that is readily available in these luxury brands. So it's not only focused for the local consumer to buy things that are trendy, but it's also for this international market that is like, oh, I'm going to go to Korea, whereas before maybe you would have gone to Paris. But so yeah, there's definitely more stock that is coming here for the purchasing. Yeah.
Right. And speaking as a stylist, James, what would you perhaps highlight as perhaps key traits of the Korean fashion, if there are any such?
Of course. I think overall with Korean fashion, as I was saying before, now trends are so global, and things that there isn't a trend now that's not here, so it's very broad. I was thinking about this morning, and it's kind of like, the thing about Korea is that it's really open to trends. So they're not, if something happens in a trend on TikTok, Koreans are happy to quickly pick it up and embrace it, and then local brands will be influenced by it, and then Koreans can technically buy it because these designers are inspired by these trends. So it's definitely, that's what's happened with Y2K. So the Y2K obviously is the menswear is this very slouchy, oversized fit. You see it everywhere, I'm sure. And it's definitely, there is that hip hop culture element to it, and the Y2K aesthetic. And then women's wear, it's definitely a more tomboy vibe that you see, I think, with Korean younger generation. They're happy to be this kind of nonchalant, cool tomboy girls. I see them everywhere, basically. And then I definitely, as we were discussing before, it's kind of the old money aesthetic is something that I work on social media, and I create content about trends and what's happening in Korea. And I recently did the old money aesthetic, and people were so fascinated by it. It was one thing that I got so much engagement and so many questions about the old money aesthetic. So I definitely see that as something that's going to happen as well. So
right.
I think that you'll see that in the next kind of season happening here.
Right, good to know, good to know. James, here in the country, there's also been growing interest in the phrase personal colour. Actually, I first had it from my daughter. She's going to college. She was interested in knowing what her personal colour was. And that being said, do you suppose knowing your personal colour could perhaps enhance your overall style with regard to fashion?
I definitely think so. I'm the same. I get a lot of questions from foreigners looking to come to Korea and have their colour red, I guess is the best way to describe it. I definitely think it's something that is positive if you are conscious about, you know, if you're going into a new job or a new workplace and you don't really feel comfortable in the fashion space, it's definitely going to kind of hone you into things that are going to be suitable for you. And I watched a video recently about the actual process, and I didn't even realize that they'll show you options for sunglasses that suit you, makeup styles and your eyebrows, even the way that they can be done, and hair color. So I think it's a very interesting approach. I definitely see it's something that you ought to, like people that are in fashion ought to organically kind of know what doesn't suit them. So I think that if you don't, I definitely think it's something that you should investigate. I personally want to go and try.
Have you tried? You haven't yet.
No, I haven't tried. I'm fascinated
Yeah,
to see if it's something that I personally know already. Like I don't tend to wear yellow because it can be for my skin not suitable. So I'm kind of fascinated too.
Right. I know what you mean though. I prefer to wear blue tones on the show.
Yeah.
I think I look better, but I'm not sure, of course. James, you talked about going for an interview or being in an office, and that being said, we often talk about how we need to dress the part. What would you recommend as a fashionable office look in the sweltering summer this year?
I know. Monsoon season is a perfect example today. I think really being edited and curated with your wardrobe is the best place to start. Thinking about, okay, today it's going to be super hot. How am I going to look put together and look comfortable without being so hot? I definitely start seeing on the street women wearing a simple skirt that is a certain length that doesn't drag on the ground. And a short sleeve shirt that is kind of give you that breathing space. So I definitely think it's about editing your wardrobe, firstly about the weather conditions, and then thinking what's going to be suitable for you. So definitely almost pairing it back to the old money aesthetic. So it's like a classic white tee, a simple linen jacket that can be over the top of it, a simple short in a cream or a bone, a gumboot that you can wear. I think it's definitely suitable to have a gumboot to and from the office and then leave shoes in the office that you feel comfortable with. So then you're a bit more put together when you arrive in the office and you can change, I think, is the best place.
Right, good to know. I think I'll go for the old money look tomorrow.
Oh yeah, you should.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this session. James, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Right, well, on that note, we end this session of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.